trafficy evening. My name is Jeff Rago. I'm formerly with Extra Television. I don't even know how many red carpets I've covered. Many, many, many red carpets. Now I'm a freelance entertainment reporter. I have a website and a web series as well where I interview celebrities in bed with my co-host Melissa Rowley. It's called In Bed With. And this is our illustrious panel. I'm really excited about it because people watch red carpets and don't quite understand what it takes to put one on, because we see the snapshot of the celebrity in their great dress, looking great, saying their great soundbite, but there's so much work involved behind the scenes. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of that information out tonight, and if you guys have questions afterwards, we'll definitely address all of those. But what I'd like to do is start with letting the panel introduce themselves. And we'll start with Alex Lippin over there at the end.
Hi, I'm Alex Lippin. I work at the Lippin Group, and I handle corporate events as well as represent luxury brands.
I'm Kristen Burks, and I'm host of the Web Files, which is basically a web series, covered web series. But it really goes behind the scenes. Just think of it Entertainment Tonight for what's happening in the web series. And then I sort of chronicle all of my red carpet adventures as well at redcarpetcloset.blogspot.com, and also an entertainment reporter for Mingle Media TV.
My name is Callum McGuire. I'm a personal stylist and shopper, and my company is the Emerald Scarab, where I work with men and women on styling them and doing personal shopping for them.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to start off with sort of what is a red carpet? How does it come to be? And I'm going to direct this question to Alex. When your company comes up with an event, what are the steps that happen in order to get that celebrity onto that red carpet?
Well, the process is it's a very extensive process. It starts months in advance with the announcement of the air date for the particular award show. Then there is a nominations announcement, which usually comes in the form of a press conference, which also lends itself to a red carpet and media, in which we send out announcements about talent that may be presenting the nominations. Media there, as well as usually the producer of the show. And from there, sort of the ball begins to roll, and the red carpet planning begins from scouting the venue, figuring out how much space we actually have, deciding who the host of the event will be. Usually in the case of major award shows such as the Emmys, the Producers Awards, there's talent to announce as well as potential honorees. So the red carpet is really a very long process, but it's also a very exciting process because basically that is how the world gets their information.
Now, on the flip side of creating the event, with some of the talent that you handle, how do you decide which events you're going to have that talent go to? Is it a community effort between you and the talent? You decide if it's an important event? How does that work?
I think it's really a matter of, well, one, knowing your client and knowing what's beneficial for them to attend. And it's really important as a publicist to know what media is going to be covering that particular event, because in certain instances you have to be very careful who your client speaks to. And some events are fantastic for talent to attend and others are not. So as a publicist, it's really important to be informed.
Well, I'm going to direct my next question over here to Colin.
Yes.
Okay, so the celebrity has the invitation. They decide they're going to go to the red carpet event.
Yes.
They come to you and say, dress me.
Yes. Please.
Please dress me. Walk us through the process.
So I think the number one first thing that it may seem obvious, but you should hire a stylist. I mean, you're hoping that someone's going to come to you, because some people, when they're new to the red carpet, they don't hire anybody. They think, oh, I can just do it. I'll just borrow a dress from so-and-so. No. You want to come to someone like me that knows what you're doing and talk to you about what do you have coming out, what are you going to be talking about on the red carpet, what kind of branding do you have, how do you want to represent yourself, are you going sexier, do you want to be more wholesome, how do you want to have everybody see you, because these pictures are going to be around forever with the internet the way it is. And it can really make or break you, like Liz Hurley, way back when she wore the Versace dress, that literally launched her career. Nobody knew who she was before that. So the red carpet can be really important, and you want to start with the right designer.
Now, how do you go about finding designers? Do you look for new designers? Designers come to you? Does it depend upon the clients that you're working with?
It depends on who it is. If there's someone really big like Angelina Jolie, you can get pretty much anybody. If it's someone that's just been in a few little movies or maybe on TV, then it can be a little bit more challenging to get someone for them. But there's always a designer that's saying, I want myself on the red carpet. You just have to make sure that it's appropriate for the red carpet and it's not going to have a BB look to it or something like that.
Right. Now, how much input does a celebrity have in deciding what it is that they're going to wear and how they're going to accessorize that?
A lot, but it kind of comes down to personality because some people just want you to do everything for them. They don't have to think about it. They just want to know they're going to look good. And other people are like, oh, I like these earrings. I know I kind of want to have this sort of feel to it. And other people's PR teams are more hovering around and kind of pointing out everything. So it's dependent upon the individual who's representing.
Well, shoot, for Kristen first. You've been listening so intently.
I know.
All right. So there's sort of a protocol on the red carpet. From a reporter's standpoint, can you kind of explain what it is that we go through?
Sure.
Because it's much different than what you see.
It's not
It's not that
glamorous. I wish it was, but our job really is to get out there and work with the publicists and hopefully put their clients in the best light possible. If you want to keep on showing up at red carpets, that's your best that's your best thing to do, and as Alex will tell you. But we have to check in, and you get a thing called a tip sheet. The tip sheet will have photographs oftentimes of people that are scheduled to appear on the red carpet. It's tough. You really, as an entertainment reporter, you need to keep up with what's happening on Perez Hilton and People Magazine and Entertainment Tonight, so maybe some scandals to stay away from, maybe some things to talk about if they've got a big movie. So you kind of have to run the gamut of sort of the tabloids all the way through the A-list, Entertainment Tonight's and E. And the nice thing about the tip sheet is if you're like, I recognize that face, but I don't know where they're from, oftentimes it'll say they're in Glee or they're in Twilight right now, because there's always a new crop of young actors coming up, and that can be the big challenge of like trying to remember and place all of them. And as a reporter, you're kind of stuck behind, I call it sort of a cattle call. You're often stuck behind either bushes or metal railings, and you're dressed up. I know, you're looking all pretty, but oftentimes, I'm going to demonstrate this, but Jeff, you and I are oftentimes like this, and my camera's here, so it's really just my shoulder oftentimes getting in the shot. So you're kind of jostling for space sometimes. So even though you're at the Oscars and you're in a really expensive gown, you're knocking elbows with Jeff, which actually we did knock elbows at the Streamy Awards in April. So while it's a super fun job, it also does present its challenges.
Yeah. I mean, literally when you get to a red carpet, you'll check in with at the media check-in, and they'll have kind of papers like this. It says your whatever media outlet you're in. And this is about as much space as you have. And you have to take into account, if you have talent, a reporter, you're going to have a producer, you're going to have a cameraman, sometimes you're going to have a soundman. So you could have up to 4 people in this space, and the same here, so it gets really, really crowded. There's certain etiquette that I know that you want to talk about.
There's a lot of interesting things that happen on a red carpet, and I think a lot of, and you probably see this for some of your greener, talent. Oftentimes they get on camera and they're done, and then they're like, okay, I go to the next one, but the next person that I'm supposed to go to is like 2 or 3 people away. Sometimes people cross in front of camera, and if it's a live show, you have just crossed in front of another actor and reporter shot, and I'm always like, ugh. And it happens more than I would like to even tell you. It's actually embarrassing because it ruins someone else's shot. Usually if you have a publicist guiding you, they can sort of lead you around and everything, but if someone's walking down the red carpet themselves, it's really, really important to be aware of your surroundings no matter how overwhelming it is. And I think the really, really big shows, there's always a publicist with you if you're at the Emmys or the Oscars. But even those are so overwhelming with the noise, and the Oscars has snipers on the roof aiming at the red carpet because security is at a maximum. It's easy to just walk into someone else's shot, so you really have to be conscientious of your surroundings.
And I will apologize for the amount of time that you do. I will let you know that we are there in the morning before the show in our sweats, measuring every last inch, because we have to get in every photographer, every crew, every journalist into a very small amount of space. And all of that work and those papers that get taped to the ground, that's us.
Exactly.
So those blood, sweat, and tears. And we want the coverage. We want the media to be there. It's not that we don't want every press member to be there, but unfortunately, credentialing really has to do with the viewership, and the bigger outlets, the ETs, the Extras, Access Hollywoods, they get big numbers, and all of that has a lot to do with what coverage they're going to give us leading up to the event. the day of the event and after the event. And if I can guarantee my client, the award show, that they're going to get the coverage, then that outlet will get preferential treatment. So although it's a small space, that's what they get.
Yes, you speak the truth. I'm so glad that everything that you just said is so true, because it is a hierarchy. You're at a big award show. It's Entertainment Tonight. It's Access Hollywood. It's Extra. It's E. Then move to CNN, and then on down the line. And it's that way at every award show. First stop is always ET if they're there, and it's challenging because some reporters will hog time and not allow that celebrity to get down the line because they want get as many sound bites as possible. And it's really interesting the way that the reporter and producer needs to work with the PR rep, because the PR rep is there to make sure that their client is getting as much coverage as possible on the biggest outlets as possible. In our job as a reporter, when I worked in Extra, it was great because I got everyone. But when I work on a website, it's a little bit more challenging to be able to get that coverage. So Alex, I want to ask you, how do you prep your talent to talk to an Entertainment Tonight or an Extra, Access Hollywood, some of the bigger outlets that are going to get big viewerships? Do you kind of give them some media training, or does it depend upon the personality of the client?
It really depends on the personality of the client. Thankfully, I have been blessed with amazing clients. I think one thing that's really important as a publicist to let my talent know is that it is fine to acknowledge their peers, and if they are nominated, it's important to acknowledge the people that they are among, because those people are just as qualified as they are, and while they're walking the red carpet before the show, they don't know if they're the winner. So I think that's very important, and I think that it's very important for the media as well to really do their homework. Oftentimes you will put your client in front of a crew, and unfortunately the reporter hasn't done their homework, and so they're asking questions that really, it's not the messaging that you want your client to deliver, and that's really where I think it becomes a bit of a juggle. You hope that when your client is speaking with the media that they have information about your client, they know who they are, you don't have to give them the name and tell them what show the talent is on, but sometimes you do. So there are times that publicists are very famous for saying no, and unfortunately there are times when an inappropriate question is asked and you just say, I'm sorry, my client is not going to answer that. So I think it's a bit of a game, and you really hope that both sides have the information that they need to deliver the message.
Absolutely, absolutely. On an event, like just say let's say a movie type of thing that we're there specifically for the movie. 9 times out of 10, you're going to lead with a question about the movie, and then you're going to be moving on to personal stuff. People want to know. People are celebrities because the public wants to know them. Where's that line? Like, how much, as a reporter, do you feel that we can ask your client?
That's an interesting question. I think a lot of that has to do with the relationship that, as a publicist, that I have with my client, because I know them well enough to know what they do want to talk about, what they don't want to talk about, and oftentimes they'll tell me, I'll say, is there anything that you do not want to discuss? And depending on that answer, that's where the interview ends. So if a question's asked that I know that it's going to put that person in an awkward position, I'm not going to let that happen. It's my job to protect the best interest of my client, and that's really where the line is drawn. Yeah. You really hope that reporting, I get it. In this world, it's all about the exclusive. There's a reason why these shows fight for the interview with that particular celebrity and want it first. It's because they're able to say exclusive. All the magazines want the photos first, which is why they're paying the big bucks for it. So I understand the story is big and everyone wants it, but it's my job to say no. It's my job to protect the best interest of my client, and unfortunately, if I have to be the bad guy, so be it.
Yeah, publicists do get a bad rap. They do get a bad rap sometimes, but that's your job. I mean, completely get it. Now, Kristen, as a reporter, it's your job to get that soundbite that yes. Publicist doesn't necessarily want you to get.
Yes.
How do you? So we put them next to each other. We're going to have a lot of catfight. How do you go about sort of honoring, the wishes of the publicist and getting what it is that you need?
And it really is a fine line, as you were saying. And, you know, it's one of those things, if it's a celebrity I've interviewed over and over, I kind of know where my boundaries are with that person. If they at least recognize me or they've seen me a few times and we've talked before, I know that I can ask other questions. I mean, and I personally just sort of draw upon personal experience. Like if someone just had a death in the family or something, or some big drug scandal, I probably will stay away from it just because it doesn't really help anyone. And I know in some ways you think, well, you know, that's not going to give you the hot interview that you want, but I want people to keep coming back and feel good when they approach me. A really good example, I don't know if Frank's still in the room, but we did, there you are, Frank, the Stay Tuned TV Awards, their MC was Todd Bridges, and it literally was, 4 or 5 days after Gary Coleman passed away. And, you know, the whole Different Strokes thing, and I was interviewing him, and I didn't want to say it, and he came right out with a joke saying, well, I'm going to be doing a web series with Emmanuel Lewis from Webster, obviously replacing another short person. I was like, all right, I got that out of the room. I was like, I won't ask about Gary Coleman. You know? So oftentimes a celebrity will do a little give and take with you, and so
It's a dance.
It's a total dance on the red carpet.
And there's not a lot of room to dance.
We've established that.
But there is dancing. I don't want to leave you left out. I want to come back to you.
I'm
for
fine.
You're enjoying this? So you're stylist, and so your designer gives you a dress, and you've got your jewelry. You put the whole look together. How important is it to you as the stylist to make sure that that celebrity says, I'm wearing, you know, does that?
It's really important. Everybody's calling you, texting you, did they put this on, did they put that on, are they wearing my shoes? And you're running out the door, and sometimes you've got 3 pairs of shoes in the car, and they're still trying it on, and you're late for everything, and everybody wants to know what they're wearing, and sometimes you don't know until they step out of the car.
Right.
You know, because sometimes you're in the car and but it just depends. But sometimes you don't know, so they'll actually get there, and you're like on the TV trying to like text Stuart Weitzman, I think he's wearing your shoes, I think so.
So do you express how important it is to the celebrity to sort of kind of know the names of everything they're wearing and try to get that out in the interview?
Yeah, even if they're not a celebrity, even if it's like a writer or producer or something like that, but still going to get some kind of interview, still going to get photographed. I make sure that they all make them repeat it. This is how you pronounce it. Does everybody I want to hear the whole thing, so that when someone asks, like, everybody always asks, you know, then they can say accurately.
Now, do you make sure that the publicist knows what they're wearing as well? Because I've seen it, and it's happened to me before. You'll ask, what are you wearing? And they won't know. And the publicist will be like,
or the celebrity will be like, can you look at my tag? And you're literally looking at some celebrity's dress. I've had that happen a lot.
Exactly.
I usually text it to the publicist.
Okay.
Because then it's like,
Now, when you get to crunch time and you are getting to the stylist portion, do you guys work together? Not necessarily you two, but do you work closely with the stylist? Is
Well,
that
I
an important part of what you do?
have fashion brands as clients, so in answer, I am always harassing stylists before an award show, absolutely. I mean, I want my brands on those celebs, but it's tough. Everyone is, you know, as soon as I get the nominations list, I'm calling those stylists and asking, will they come look at my client's jewelry? And in fact, you know, oftentimes big celebrities get deals. They make a lot of money to wear really nice jewelry. And if you don't have the budget, you know, unfortunately, sometimes you lose out. But I absolutely am picking up the phone and dialing those numbers because I want to get there first. And there's no guarantee. There's absolutely no guarantee. I am oftentimes disappointed, you know, whether the change occurs in the limo, but somehow they're not wearing that $1 million necklace that I knew that they were going to be wearing. Well, it happens.
Now, how does it work with jewelry specifically? Does the jewelry get gifted to them, or does it get loaned to them, or does it depend on the value of the jewelry itself?
It's usually loaned. I mean, I'm sure you can speak to this as well, but it's usually loaned, and if the jeweler is so inclined, they can gift. But I think you probably can speak better.
I feel like gifting is becoming less common with the high worth items, you know, the diamonds, the jewels, things like that, that maybe they would have gifted to people a few years back. It's not as common now as it was before because of the recession and a lot of brands having a hard time. So it's usually borrowed. And once they wear it, they can't, if it's a really big statement earring or necklace, they can't really wear it again that easily. So it's easier for them to just wear it for that one night and give it back. It's everybody's kind of best scenario.
Now, red carpets have sort of evolved. I think years and years ago, red carpets were for the big award shows. So it was for the Emmys, the Oscars, and everything. Now it seems like red carpets are the opening of a store, or a charity event, or a 16th birthday, or, you know, and everybody has a red carpet.
There's one on Saturday for a haunted house.
Yeah, everybody's got
A bunch
one.
of teen stars.
Why, and I can open this up to all of you, why do you think red carpets have become such a big part of our pop culture?
It's aspirational.
Save money though too.
Right?
Well, but like she just had one for her 22nd birthday the other day. They made her a red carpet.
Oh, awesome.
They didn't necessarily get any money from that, but it's sort of an aspirational thing. It's like you want to feel like everybody's looking at you and you're the center of attention, you look the best, and but on top of that is of course money.
Yeah, I just think that the whole, Melissa and Joan Rivers created what the red carpet is today. Whether you love Joan Rivers on the red carpet, that she made an entire show around that and created fashion police and everything else. And I do think, since it's my job also to ask like who you were wearing. It's the actor or the celebrity's job to know who they're wearing because you're getting the free stuff. And when they're like, I don't know, you know what? You should know. And I really do feel like that because I'm like, you're getting free stuff. I'm giving you publicity. You're giving the designer publicity. We all work together on that. So, and people want to know because people want to buy it. So it really is an actor's job to know before they get step on that red carpet who your shoes and your dress and your earrings are and your purse and everything.
Absolutely.
I more red carpets the better.
More opportunities for your jewelry and celebrities to get out there.
Listen, my job's fun. I enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm a big part of it. And the interesting thing about the red carpet, which a lot of people don't know, is that for as much as you see on the red carpet and the media and the celebrities, there is as much going on backstage, press-wise, which is really an interesting, it's an interesting sort of beast in and of itself because backstage, which is what the public does not see, there is a press room, there is a photo room, there is a digital transmission room where there are actually editors uploading photos from the red carpet. So the photographers are shooting, those cards go backstage to the editors upload those photos, so literally it's real time. And then also backstage there's a winner's walk, so all of the crews that are on the red carpet are also backstage. So as much work goes into creating that red carpet that looks beautiful and glamorous, there's also that going on backstage.
Now with the influx of social media, red carpets I think are changing a little bit because with all of the entertainment outlet shows that we were talking about earlier, those are all taped, and those shows then go to don't air until the next day unless it's like an E or something like that. But now everyone's a reporter. Everyone has a camera. Everyone has a video camera. And how do you keep the reporters that you wanted there to getting their sound bites as opposed to someone just walking up with a camera and sticking it into celebrity's face? Is there security? How does that work?
Well, we credential all media. They have to submit all press, whether you're ET or a blogger, you have to submit. Ultimately, there's an approval process, and a lot of it has to do, like I said, with viewership. And it also has to do with space because, as you know, we're dealing with inches. But oftentimes, bloggers don't get access to red carpets, especially at the big award shows that we handle, just because there's simply not enough room. And we do have security, so all media wears credentials, some form of identification that distinguishes them as media. So not anyone can come up and interview a celebrity. That being said, if you have a camera and you take an award-winning shot that a photographer on the red carpet doesn't get, that photo is really valuable. So there are always ways around, and whatever we try to do in terms of security and rope and stanchions and bike racks, there are always those people that really get great shots.
And it's really important to understand that I'm sure the Emmys and things like that are the same way as the Oscars, but if you take a picture like, look, I got credentials for the Oscars and put it up on Facebook, someone will see it and your credentials are immediately yanked and you're done. You'll never ever cover the Academy Awards again, and it has happened more times than you think. In fact, it happened to one very big person last year. So you really, really have to be careful about that.
And we watch for that stuff all the time.
Twitter and Facebook, and it's amazing how now they're playing into the red carpet and the security of it all.
And a lot with people having blogs, really a lot of people take liberty. They believe that they are as qualified as someone else, and unfortunately, in many instances, we have to say no. And sometimes it's not, the nicest response. in return, but we do say no politely.
Alex is actually a very nice woman. She just has to say no a lot.
We're gonna watch this and regret it.
No. This is all great information. I'm even learning a lot, which is fantastic. But I want to ask you, what kind of homework do you do before you step onto a red carpet?
A lot, and it's interesting because you'll get a sheet that says this is who is expected to turn up on the red carpet, and you get there sometimes and it's 3 people of who you've researched and turned up, and then it's everyone else. But you know, when I get the list, if I am not familiar with someone, IMDb again becomes your best friend. But again, it's really important, and I know, you know, my boyfriend makes fun of me all the time because I'm always trolling Perez Hilton and TMZ and People and Us Magazine just to make sure I'm up on what is happening. So I can pretty much quote who's dating who and who's pregnant and who's got a baby bump, and I mean all of these crazy things when you kind of need to. Or what happened at the box office last weekend. So your Variety and your Hollywood Reporter are really important. So I've got a huge bookmark that becomes a part of that, and I sometimes take my own notes, and then you get the tip sheet and you can sort of collate together. But it can be you know, a couple hours worth of work even before you step onto that red carpet, and that's not even talking about the preparations, because you've got to be red carpet ready. You've got to get dressed and have hair done and everything else too.
Now, even with, I'm saying this from my own experience, but even with all of that preparation and homework, every now and then someone will be put in front of you that you have never seen before in your life. You have no idea who it is. They're not with a publicist. No one can tell you who it is.
No one.
No one. And you don't want to be rude.
Correct.
So how do you handle a situation like that?
You know, there are some red carpets that you actually can politely decline, and it's okay. Just say, you know what, we're waiting, or we're not able to do an interview right now. If they look like they're going to be receptive to that. There are people that are really persistent, and they want that interview, even if you have no clue who they are. So if they're not going to go away, you're going to interview them. And, you know, it's easy. You can make it short and sweet, and I think that's a good thing. If it's a movie premiere, ask them quickly, like, why they're here to support the movie, or what's their favorite, you know, thing about the actor that's starring in this movie. And then just ask them, what are you working on really quick? And they'll usually, of course, have something to promote. And then you just say, thanks, enjoy your evening, and send them on the way. Because sometimes it's easier just to do the 2 questions and get them going than go,
It's really important. It's really important to be gracious on the carpet, especially from a reporter's standpoint, because the PR companies and PR reps are so crazed. They've got so much going on. And as Alex said, they do say no a lot, and it's important not to take it personally and to understand that this is a business and to be as gracious as possible. And if you get said no to, I've been said no to before.
Yeah.
You know, it does. It sends a hot shoot up the back of my neck, but I'm like, oh, you know, you have to understand that's just the way that the business is.
I also find it tough when celebrities go. If you're covering red carpet Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, you see the same celebrity. This is a good one for Alex. 3 nights in a row. I'm telling you, by Thursday, I can't interview you again because you've been at the opening of an envelope. So the footage becomes worthless to, you know, my outlet. And there's certain, I'm going to name drop, I don't care, but Bai Ling shows up to everything. She does, and I get to a point, I'm like, I can't interview you anymore.
So true.
She's lovely, and the one good thing is that she always has a crazy.
She's dressed her.
She's got an amazing wardrobe.
Oh,
she really does. But I know I can't ask her about her movie because I talked about it with her Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's an overexposure thing that happens with clients.
Right, and then also with the influx of all of the reality television, there's so many people that have now become celebrities in their own minds or in their own right, and they're and because they, you know, they haven't taken the steps to get to where they are, they just all of a sudden are famous. They just show up, and those are the ones that I don't know because I don't watch a whole lot of reality television. So when they walk up, it's so challenging because I, 1, don't watch their shows. 2, don't know who they are, and people around me don't know who they are. So it's hard, but you have to always remember these are human beings, and be gracious, because that reality star could hit and become the next big
Elizabeth
thing.
Hasselbeck. I mean, she
Elizabeth
started on
Hasselbeck,
Survivor.
exactly, and also it's just nice to be human. But that's all. I'm going to open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions? that can ask any one of them? Way in the back of the red.
I have a style question because someone mentioned like the fashion police. So this is kind of a two-part style question. What happens when like one of your talents, like how do they get in that horrible dress? First of all, my second part of that question is it true that no publicity is bad publicity once they get that on the worst dress list? So it's kind of like a two-part question.
Well, for the style part, sometimes they get in a bad dress because if you don't, it's like finding a good hairstylist or anything else. If you're dressing someone and you don't have that back and forth, and say you're the type of person that's like, I'm just going to put you in 3 different trends because that's what I think you should do. The person's like, okay, are you sure? And you're like, yeah. That's how some of the bad stuff happens. Other times it's the management kind of going in the wrong direction or not really understanding what looks good and just being like, well, this designer should be on this person. This is what we should do. And you're going, it's not looking good. This isn't going to work. And you can't really do anything. So sometimes it's the stylist's fault. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. But I think a lot of the bad stuff happens because people they're in a room by themselves often, or maybe with 1 or 2 other people they know pretty well, and they sort of get in their own world. Of, oh yeah, this looks good, and it's different, and it's going to be good because of this. And then you got out in the real world, and everybody goes, are you kidding me? So it can be a number of different things.
And then the second part of your question, bad publicity, good publicity. Alex, is there any bad publicity?
There's definitely such thing as bad publicity, yes.
So is getting on the worst dress list for the Academy Awards something that will be very bad for your client?
I don't necessarily think that Fashion Police or the worst dress list or the Back of Us Weekly in the magazines where they pan particular outfits on 2 pages. I don't necessarily think that's a make or break. I think that fashion itself is really something that's difficult to judge. Not everyone is going to think one thing looks great, and not everyone is going to think one thing looks awful. So if your client feels comfortable and they're happy in what they have on, unless they're revealing too much, listen, the hope is that your client will step on the red carpet and feel great. And if that's the case, then you know what, you support it. Obviously, I'd never allow a client to be in something, see-through or incredibly inappropriate. I don't think it's appropriate to wear jeans to an award show, I'll tell you that. I think that you should always be respectful of the event that you're attending. And if you are being honored, if you have been given the opportunity to attend, you should dress appropriately. Unless it's the MTV Awards. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I think it's great that there are so many red carpet events, especially for someone like myself who's an independent filmmaker. It's wonderful publicity. And I find that even the sound bites, I can write things for my actors. What I don't know is, you said there's no level of too big or too small. Well, I don't always like how the people in my films are dressing. I would love to have someone dress them. As the director, I have no idea how to. Do I call someone? Do I?
Yes.
What?
Definitely call someone.
Do I call you? Do I call you right here? My actors, I'm getting a lot of play. Can you help? Would you help?
You go through and figure out how many people need to dress, what events it's for, and if you're going to need more than one stylist, and you can go through people ask for referrals. If you know someone that's used a stylist, you can just start calling people. You can go through agencies if you have any friends that might work at some kind of an agency, PR type of thing. They might have connections to that. So you can kind of start to do that. And then you meet people, see if your personalities match, see if you kind of agree with what they're saying, and go from there. Yeah, it's important because it's like if they're telling you dye your hair black and you really want a blonde, you're probably not a good match. It's the same thing with clothing. If they're saying, well, you should, dress like 90s hip hop, and you're like, I don't think so, probably not a good match.
You were also saying that a lot of these writers, you're also dressing them, and I know that is that really important? Is that
well, I think so, because if you're gonna physically be going down the red carpet, you're probably in almost every circumstance, very few exceptions, you're there for a reason, and people are going to be talking to you. You're going to be introduced to other people, and that might be their first impression of you. You might get a little interview. You might get a sound bite that blows up into something larger than you thought it was going to be. So it's important to always be putting your best foot forward and represent what you want to have represented, in the proper way, so it doesn't come across as being sloppy or that you weren't taking it seriously or don't know what you're talking about.
And I think it's important too, because the actors hear this all the time, like, what's your brand? What's your brand? It's the same thing for a writer or director, and I think someone who has a great brand, Diablo Cody, I mean, she's got a look, you know, and you know exactly who she is though, and I think that that is fantastic because she has name recognition. Of course she won an Oscar, but at the same time, you know, she's got a great story and everything else, and she's got a great soundbite. She's fun to interview, and I think that sort of carries through in all the media, so it's important.
Kristen, you mentioned that it's important to have a good relationship with a publicist. And as far as just etiquette, like on the red carpet, do you usually address, let's say you don't know the publicist, but here comes someone you want to interview. Do you address the publicist first? Do you introduce yourself to them?
I try, yeah, there's a balance, and it depends on how busy the red carpet is. Like a big award show, like an Academy Awards or an Emmys, there's not going to be a lot of time to really be, you know, introducing yourself and talking a lot. But, you know, at smaller events, and I think that's the great opportunity to really start the relationship is, you know, sometimes at the media table you can meet the publicist there, exchange business cards. Oftentimes you'll see them walk up and down because they're leading 3 or 4 different clients down that red carpet. So you'll sort of, if you can try and remember a name and a face together. And if you do get their information, email them the next day. And, you know, because oftentimes they're going to have events coming up, and if I can get in on their loop or on their mailing list for events, that's a great opportunity because you can go from covering those smaller red carpets to bigger and bigger red carpets. So it's nice to have that in your own sort of Rolodex.
Oftentimes the publicist will actually come to the correspondent or the producer of that particular outlet and say, I have so-and-so, would you like to speak with them? That way, at least in my case, I never want to be put in a situation where I bring my talent to a crew and they don't want to interview that person. It's really awkward and you want to avoid it. So I always am one step ahead of my client so that when he or she's doing that interview, I'm on the next crew just saying, do you want this person? And if they say no, we'll pass. They're waiting for the person, you know, that's just one ahead. It's also a great way to say, hey, I have this person, so that they know by name, so that when the correspondent asks the first question is, hi Alex, not hi, how are you, you know?
Yeah, because there is so much going on, and especially that last, I would say 20 minutes before the event's about to start, that's when the bigger names usually show up, and they're, you know, you have 2 questions here, 2 questions here, and they're just popping down, so it's like you really have to be on your game. Because that's crunch time. And there is enough time to say, oh, hi, I'm Alex, I'm Jeff. There's no time for that. And what Alex just said is the best possible scenario. When a publicist comes to you, separate from their client, separate from the talent, and asks you if you want to interview them. If I've got the time, I'll interview anyone. I will talk to anyone because all of that footage, you know, we'll keep in the library, and we may not use it specifically for the piece that we're cutting for that event. But maybe somewhere down the line, that soundbite that they use, it will be used in a piece later on. So I'll interview anyone. The only time I won't interview someone is if it's a smaller name and the lead of the movie is at the outlet right next to me. And I know that if I take this person, they're going to take that lead around me, and I'm not going to get them. So that I've done that before, and publicists understand that. It is all business.
And that happens a lot,
that
too.
Happens a lot.
It happens a lot where you've got that big name actor and you're like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You're like, Robert De Niro's next, sorry.
Yeah, no, just an example. I was doing a movie premiere, I can't remember the name of the movie, but Emma Thompson was the lead in the movie. And the publicist for this woman in Friday Night Lights, and it was right when Friday Night Lights first started, people still didn't know whether it was going to be working or not working, had come up to me and said, do you want to interview so-and-so from Friday Night Lights? And I said, and Emma Thompson was like right there. And I was like, I said, I can. And she was a little disturbed that I wouldn't interview her. But I had Emma Thompson, and that was what I needed to bring back to my, you know, desk. I needed to bring the sound bites from Emma Thompson because those were the ones that were going to lead the piece. So when you're actually out there on reporting, you already have in your mind what the story is going to be. Like a lot of producers already pretty much have it written out, and your job is to just go out there and get the sound bites to fill in the space. So you know what it is that you need to get, and if you get extra stuff, that's great. And you know, maybe, you know, something that person from Friday Night Lights said would be brilliant, but unfortunately that's not going to fit the piece, and that's not what they sent me out there to do. So that's It's such a dance.
The trickiest part about doing an award show and being an agency that handles award shows is the 20 minutes before the show is about to go live, because that is when all of the major talent arrives. You have all of the crews who have been assigned to get those major interviews, and those major interviews are the ones that arrive 20 minutes before the show is going to start. And if it's a live broadcast, all of their seats in the auditorium are already set. And so that first shot where they pan and they want all of those A-list celebrities, those A-list celebrities better be in their seat. And it's my job as the publicist who's handling the carpet to get them off the carpet and into their seat. So it is very difficult, because on one hand, I have the producer from an outlet saying to me, I've got to get that interview, and I have the producer of the award show in my ear telling me that celebrity that literally just got out of the limo needs to be sat, and I've got to get this person down the line. And it is the hardest 20 minutes because you want to satisfy the media.
Right.
You know, my job is to make sure those interviews are taken care of, that the media is happy when they leave. They need to get that interview. They need to get the soundbite. Unfortunately, I also need to get that person in their seat. So that's very tricky. And thankfully, when you encounter the personal publicist, hopefully they have one, you say, this person literally has 4 minutes to do 2 interviews, 2 questions, and in their seat. Because if the lights go down and that producer and that show goes live and that producer does not have that talent set, it's my fault.
And as a reporter, too, when it is crunch time, you'll often see the publicist doing this to you. You better do it, because honestly, it's important that they may have 2 more media outlets to hit, and it's rude and it's selfish, actually, to be going on and on and on. Even if the actor wants to keep talking, it's your job at that point to cut them off politely and as smoothly as you can so that they can move down the line. So it's really, it's so tough sometimes, because you're like, oh, I have one more question, but sometimes you can't ask.
But it's an adrenaline rush, I'll tell you. It really is. It's an adrenaline rush.
So this makes the point that if you're not that well known and you want interviews, get there early.
Yes.
Early.
Everybody waiting
Get
to
there
interview.
Because generally, the media is going to be there at least an hour, if not 2, before that event is going to start. And if you're new and you want to get some red carpet coverage, and it's good to practice too, as an actor or a writer or somebody that's going to be speaking to the media. It's great practice. Go do it, and anyone that'll talk to you, talk to them, because you never know. And even if it's a website or a blogger, talk to them, because it just gives you great an opportunity to just speak and to understand how to talk in sound bites. And I don't know if we've even discussed that enough. It's so important as somebody who's being interviewed that we're looking for sound bites. We're looking for a little phrase that we can build a story around. With websites, it may be a little bit different because we can actually let the whole raw interview run. But if it's on an Entertainment Tonight, an Access, an Extra, something like that, they want 1-2 sentences that are going to encapsulate everything that they're going to say. Because that interview could be 4 minutes long, but you may get 15 seconds of that celebrity actually saying anything.
Yeah. It's so interesting, because it's do encounter actors that you have a question, you do need a soundbite, and they'll tell you a 20-minute story, and and it's great if it was a sit-down interview because I do have the time, but I have a reporter next to me that's like, tapping their heels and getting really annoyed at me, and I'm like, and I've got the publicist in the back like doing this, and we're sitting there and we've got so much footage at this point, so it is a challenge, and I think the greatest actors on the red carpet are the ones that are just cute and funny, and they don't tell the same story to Jeff that they tell to me that they tell to Alex. Like, even if we ask the same question, don't go, oh, they just asked me that right there. That is so annoying. No, just pretend that this is your first interview, that you hit the red carpet, and just say, you know what, yeah, my favorite color is purple. And then if she asks the same question, it's pink, it's blue, it's whatever it is, because that footage is all going to be up the next day, and it's going to be running, and people may watch Entertainment Tonight, and they watch Access Hollywood, and they watch E, and there's nothing worse than having that same soundbite over and over. You want to be fresh and funny, and that's what makes you want to interview people over and over again, because you're like, oh, you're so fantastic. And you love interviewing them, and you get excited when they come up to you.
Another great trick when you are on the carpet as a reporter is if you're not interviewing someone and the person next to you has that someone, listen in on the interview and see what it is, the questions that they're asking and the answers that they're giving, and you can sort of get a feel of how your interview should go, so that you don't ask them the same questions.
Yeah.
Or if you were sent out there specifically to ask these same questions, because a lot of the times you are sent out there specifically and they give you 5 questions that we need answers to these questions. You can rephrase it and sort of make it fresh, make it your own. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And it just really, if you think about it as having a conversation, it makes it so much easier, because if you can get them into a conversational mode, it's just, you can really get some fresh, authentic answers. That's what I like doing. I like to see some authenticity.
And that's where your research will also come into play too. If you've done your research, I did Beverly Hills Chihuahua premiere, and everyone was asking Jamie Lee Curtis about the movie, and you know she was about to, she was not going to do my interview. I could see her just walking away, and I'm an alternative fuel vehicle nerd, so I knew she had just gotten a Honda FCX Clarity, which is fuel cell, and I was like, Jamie, how is your fuel cell vehicle? And she stayed for like 5 questions, and the publicist was like, where did you pull this out? But I had done reporting on some alternative fuel vehicle stuff, you know, about a month before, and knew she had gotten it, and she was one of the few in the area. So it was just one of those things that I pulled out of a hat, and it worked. And then I asked her one quick question, Beverly Hills Chihuahua, because I needed to get that soundbite too. But I got some great footage, and she was so excited that no one had asked her that, from Entertainment Tonight all the way down to the small media outlets. So.
And it just makes the celebrity go, oh, this person cares. This person really is interested, because there's a lot of people that are out there on the red carpet just a punch of a time clock. And so if you care and you are interested and you are engaged, you are 17 steps ahead of, I'd say, 3/4 of the red carpet, because most of them have been doing this for so long. They're just like, oh God, here we go. You know, it's like, I'm always excited. Like when I can sit and talk to anyone, I get very excited. I love to talk to people, because they're so fascinating. You never know what's going to happen. And what she just said is such a perfect example. I was just interviewing Jane Lynch a couple of weeks ago, and she's from Chicago, and I went to school in Chicago. Connection, okay, and then, you know, just like you start talking about places in Chicago that she went, that you can connect on. If you look hard enough, you can find a connection with just about anyone. And that's really, I think, what sets a good reporter or producer apart from a not so good one or jaded one. Exactly. Do we have any more questions? We're just like talking. Oh, you have a question?
The other question, what do you, for Alex, what do you tell a client that's sort of shy or tight-lipped to get them out on the carpet? And then, Kristen, after that, how do you get that type of person to say something?
I mean, thankfully, I have chatty clients. No, listen, I really believe that, well, let's see, a shy celebrity. I don't even know if I can answer this. I really don't have a shy celebrity as a client, but I'll say this, really, it's a matter of having a conversation. And when push comes to shove, it's 2 people conversing. And the celebrity, when push comes to shove, is just as human as you or I. And so I really think that the best advice that I would give to a client who is shy is just to say, listen, say hello, tell them you like what they're wearing, tell them you're excited to be there, and then let it go from there, because it's really the reporter's job to make the talent feel comfortable.
Yeah, you're going to run into shy actors from time to time. You're also going to run into surly people, because often, you know, people are human. They might be having a really bad day, and sometimes we'll just give you a yes, no, I'm here. And you're going to have to make it work as best as you can. If you know, for ladies, I love shoes. I always go to the shoes. Oh my gosh, your shoes are amazing. If it breaks the ice, so be it. Like, that's great. I'm a girl. I will flirt with a boy. I will do it. But I think it's the way to do it. I do name drop. If I have a friend of a friend, like I did drop Jeff Rago's name because he had just interviewed Bob Guinea. You were actually there too. But you know, I don't know. I didn't know Bob Guinea, but I was like, you know, my friend Jeff. But it creates a comfort zone. If you can create a comfort zone with a celebrity, no matter whether they're shy or they're in a bad mood, or you know, sometimes you have to interview kids, and kids are their own challenge too. Do it. I mean, whatever it is, don't be afraid to name drop. I honestly don't think it's a bad thing at all when it's a red carpet situation.
Yeah, and also if you interviewed that celebrity before, say, oh, I interviewed you on the premiere of blah, 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 or I did your junket, or I did this. Remind them, because they meet so many people, and it gives you an immediate, all of a sudden you have a history. You know, so we're all human. Have the conversation. Treat them like a human, and they're going to treat you like a human. It's really as simple as that.
What do people mean when they say, what is your brand?
Very, very good question. That's a kind of a huge thing that's sort of taken over in social media. People are all about personal branding. So how do you, I guess for you, you're a director.
Filmmaker, yeah, director. I don't know what that means.
How do you see other people seeing you? How do you want other people to see you? That's kind of what we're talking about as your brand.
Whether it's a genre of film that
Yes.
you prefer to write or direct, or a style.
You know, are you a comedy writer or a comedy director? Do you do docs? What is your thing? So that when people say your name, it immediately goes to, oh, that person. Like, if we say Steven Spielberg, we know the kinds of movies that Steven Spielberg makes.
M. Night Shyamalan is another great one.
Yeah, and I Shyamalan. When you say that, you know if it's that person's type of, you know the type of film that person is. So that's their brand.
So your company can have a brand, your actors can have a brand.
And it's really important, especially now with social media and everybody trying to get a piece and getting out there. What is it that you're an expert in, maybe? Or, you know, when people say your name, what do they think of?
I think of Paris Hilton or Lady Gaga. If you say those names,
Yeah.
immediately you have pictures of what's going on.
Because we like to classify things in boxes. It makes, I think as humans, it makes it easier for us to sort of understand that, and even as actors, when you know, this is a comedy actor, this is a dramatic actress, and when they try to kind of go outside of that genre, it's sometimes hard for them. You know, it's very, I can think of very few actors that go across the board between comedy and dramatic and romantic and action that can do all of that. Because you think of think of Meg Ryan back in the day. She was your romantic comedy guy. You know, if she tried to do anything outside of that, people were like, oh, I don't understand that. Even though she was good at it, we that was her brand. Okay. Anybody?
If you are less than talented, or you're representing someone that people don't really know as much, how do you find out about red carpet events in general? Like, how do you go about finding out how to get there? Or if you're a blogger and you want to try to apply for credentials, how do you find out about red carpets?
Yeah, I mean,
Relationships are so important in this business, and I am always shocked that I tend to get calls from the same people to cover my events, and truly I am so approachable, but sometimes people find it intimidating. This business is all about relationships. The key to finding out about events is really to call me and say that you want to be on our email blast, and you'll find out about every award show and every event that we cover, because that goes out to all the media. We may not be able to credential you because of space, but you will have the information. So the best advice I can give is just reach out. There are some people that are more receptive than others, but we'll certainly put you on our list, and you'll get notified.
Yeah, I remember this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was covering an event. It was a small event, and a very unknown Perez Hilton was on the red carpet. And I remember seeing him going, how did he get on the red carpet? Like, no one knew who he was. Because he was very outgoing and very boisterous and was asking what I thought at the time incredibly inappropriate questions. But he was there, and it was because he was ballsy, and he went out and he asked, and because of that, you see what he's become. You know, he's got probably the most recognizable entertainment website from a blogger that's out there today.
and he started out as page 666 and I followed him way back then, but and that's a great example of a brand.
Yeah.
His real name is Mario. It's not Perez Hilton.
Yeah.
You know, but he's created an empire, and he now has He has a fashion site, he has a fitness site, he has a pet site. It's amazing. And music, right? That's right. He does a lot of music too. So he's really been able to brand himself and sort of spread out.
Yeah.
You can also do research online, just if you look at prior events that you would like to cover and see what agency is in charge of media for that. You can always place the call to that publicist and say, are you handling next year's People's Choice Awards, for example? That's a really good way to get information if you don't have it.
You can blindly email people. And I find 9 out of 10 times people do respond, even saying, oh, I'm not the right person, but so-and-so is, and they'll refer you. But again, for actors and stuff, it's important just to get out there and network. And, you know, I know it's hard to decide what's a good event, what's a bad event, but you do have to go out there and meet people, and you'll find out where there's a red carpet or what's happening, or even just a premiere of web series. Web series are having a ton of red carpets. Last night I was at The Legend of Neil. They had their series finale, and, you know, that was from, it's MTV. MTV and Adam.com, that is their online comedy site. So there's a lot of opportunities to meet people and walk red carpets.
And the smaller events are even better to learn from because you're going to have more time. If you don't have big A-list celebrities coming to an event, if you're going as a reporter, you're going to have a lot more time and a lot more space to actually, you know, interview and sort of get your feet wet. And if you're going as, you know, an actor or a director or writer, you're going to have more time on that red carpet. You're going to be able to really start honing your interviews or interviewee skills. And no event is too small when you're starting out. So just start it and try it. And then as you get your footing and as you get your courage, you're going to see the world will open up.
Look for the calendar listings. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of events in there.
There's probably a red carpet event every minute.
And there's some nights I talk with other entertainment reporter friends, and I'm like, which one are you covering? Sometimes there's 3 or 4 in a night. Someone's like, oh, I'm in Beverly Hills, or I'm over in Hollywood. So
Right.
it's amazing.
All right.
Etiquette for reporters, as far as stepping over onto the red carpet.
Don't do it.
There you go.
Don't do it. That's the quickest way. It's the quickest way to piss off the publicist who's trying to manage that, because the second that you have a reporter on the carpet, there's no way to control everyone from stepping on the carpet. I mean, there's a reason why we lay down the tape so that you stand either on top of it or behind it. It's just not, it's not polite, and plus that's their space. And I think it's really important to let the celebrities have that space.
Also, it creates a traffic jam on the carpet.
And it's, from what Kristen said also, that we don't have a lot of room on our side of the stanchion. They don't have that much more room on their side of the stanchion. So if you cross that stanchion, you've taken up their room, and you're sort of inviting people to walk in front of your shot, because you want to have that backspace so that people can walk behind. Because you'll notice that if you watch red carpet coverage, there's always people walking behind. Like, who's that person? Whatever. But you want them to walk behind. You definitely don't want them to walk in front. So, just be courteous.
And the Academy Awards, I mean, they have a clear line. I mean, there is a media line, and then if you're attending the Oscars, you're on the other side of that media line. So there is no walking in front of shots and things like that, which is nice, actually. But that's a rare occasion. The only time you should be on the red carpet, intros and outros is when they usually let us do that. And that's usually either way before the red carpet starts or after it's concluded. So.
Yeah.
Or if you're the house crew, you're getting footage for inclusion in the show. But usually that is really frowned upon.
Yeah, and then also every now and then some of the larger outlets will have a platform. So you'll have the red carpet, but your outlet may have a platform. If they have a platform, that basically is sort of a mini stage, and these celebrity, the talent will come up to the stage, and you'll be able to do 2 shots with them. But that's not at every event by any stretch of the imagination. It happens at some.
Oftentimes crews will have 2 spots because of traffic, like we were saying. A lot of talent will come at the same time for things like People's Choice Awards, Emmys, etc. Outlets like E, Extra, Entertainment Tonight will have a crew on the ground, and then they'll have a platform. And so if they miss that celebrity because they're running kind of to get to photo or to get to another crew, they usually try to get them on that end. And the producers are in touch with one another so that they make sure they get the interview one way or the other.
Another question?
I have kind of a career question, Alex. At what point in a performer's career do you recommend a publicist? And when that happens, how does that relationship usually start? Is it through a manager, through the agent, is a celebrity come directly?
You know, it can happen in any number of ways. Sometimes it's an introduction through a friend, as simple as that. I really think that a publicist becomes important when you have something to tell, a story to tell, whether it's a movie that you might be in or a line that you're launching. If there's a story there and you can't tell it yourself or you need guidance, that's really where a publicist comes in. And it becomes important. And I think that oftentimes people are intimidated by it and assume that it's a daunting experience and have to hire someone and ask for help. But really, it's important in navigating through this, through Hollywood, to have someone that can basically tell you, this might not be the best situation for you to be in. I wouldn't do an interview with this person. Or, hey, this is a really great way for you to get the most attention for what might seem like a little project. I mean, believe it or not, the smallest scenes, have really grown into major deals. So I think, listen, I'm biased, I'm a publicist, but if you don't have something that I feel that I can get you attention for, I'm not going to take you as a client. So I think it's really finding the right fit, and there are. The thing about Hollywood and the thing about just business in general is you have to like who you work with, and you really have to feel like that person has your best interest in mind. And I think that ultimately, find someone that you jive with. I feel like in this business, a lot of people really go for names, or they tend to say, "Oh, you represent this person, therefore that is going to be me someday." You know what? If you like the person, you trust them, you believe that they get your vision. That sometimes is the easiest sell.
Are most publicists like Katie Cassidy's character on Melrose Place?
Oh my gosh. You know, I hope not. It really runs the gamut. There are people in this industry that are notorious. I will never name any names, that's just not me, but there are people in this business that are very difficult to deal with, and there are those that are a delight. I have been raised, and I really believe that you get more bees with honey, and relationships are so important. Just be nice, really. I have had so much success in this business just because I'm nice, and really I have no reason to be rude, and in fact, I thankfully have hopefully a nice reputation for that reason. There's no need, there really is no need to be an asshole. Just be a jerk, behave yourself, be nice.
The reputation goes right now.
Rewind.
You have another question? No? Anyone else? All right. I guess we could wrap this up. I hope that we gave you some information that you didn't already know. I know I even learned some stuff. Which is, and that's the thing. It's always, because the business, even though it's been around forever, is constantly changing because of all of the new outlets and the new ways of sort of expressing and getting the information out there. It is constantly changing. So we're all still learning. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you all next time.
Thank you to the Stylist.
Thank you.